In the news tonight, His Majesty honors Muslim scholars for their role to defend Islam and rectify misconceptions about the faith. The King checks on the Public Security Department's plan to restructure its various units and traffic system. And Iraqi and Kurdish forces storm villages as they advance in their offensive to recapture Mosul from Daesh. Good evening and welcome to the news at 10. His Majesty the King honors scholars participating in the 17th Conference of the Royal Al Bayt Institute for Islamic Thought in recognition of their services and role to defend Islam and clarify its teachings. The conference is being held in Amman on chronology of events in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. In a ceremony held at the Al Husseini Palace and attended by His Royal Highness Prince Ghazi, the King's personal envoy and advisor for religious and cultural affairs and the chairman of the Board of Trustees of the Royal Al Bayt Institute for Islamic Thought, the King bestowed medals upon a number of scholars and handed others the Institute's membership certificates. Director General of the Royal Al Bayt Institute for Islamic Thought, Minwar Al-Muhid, said during the ceremony that the 17th Conference of the Institute brings together elite Islamic scholars who came from various countries within efforts to serve Islam and Muslims. 85 scholars representing Islamic institutions from Arab, Islamic and foreign countries are attending the three-day conference. The Amman-based Royal Al Bayt Institute for Islamic Thought is an international Islamic non-governmental and independent institution. It seeks to promote awareness of Islam and Islamic thought, rectify misconceptions about the faith, and highlight the Islamic intellectuals' contributions to and impact on human civilization. His Majesty the King was briefed on steps taken by the Public Security Department to upgrade police performance in the various units and overhaul the traffic system. King Abdullah, the Supreme Commander of the Jordan Armed Forces, called on the Public Security Department and met its Director General, Major General Atif Saudi. Al-Saudi spoke about the police department's executive plans and measures to improve security services to the public and the country's visitors. The King said he appreciated the department's efforts to protect the country's security and gave his directives for a restructure of the various departments and units. King Abdullah toured the Security Department's Command and Control Center and was updated on its duties and a modernization scheme it underwent. His Majesty the King gave his directive that Jordan host the 28th Arab League Summit after Yemen declined to hold the annual Arab meeting in the war-torn country. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Foreign and Expatriate Affairs Nasser Judeh informed Arab League Secretary General Ahmed Abul Ghait that he presented the matter to His Majesty, the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, and accordingly the Kingdom agreed to host and chair the summit. Judeh said in a letter to the Arab League chief that consultations will be held over the coming period on measures and steps needed to agree on the date of holding the summit and extend invitations to Arab kings, presidents and heads of state. The Arab League Secretary General informed the Deputy Prime Minister in a letter last week that Yemen had declined to host the summit, citing the ongoing war in the country. Prime Minister Hani Molki said Jordan will continue supporting Yemen's legitimate government and efforts to restore the country's security and stability. Molki told his Yemeni counterpart, Ahmed bin Daghir, that His Majesty King Abdullah had clearly stated at various world forums that Jordan advocates political solutions to the crisis in Arab countries, including Yemen and Syria. He urged the parties in Yemen to engage in serious negotiations to reach a peaceful solution to the conflict. The Yemeni Prime Minister conveyed the greetings of Yemeni President Abd Rabbo Mansour Hadi to His Majesty and the government and people of Jordan. He commended Jordan's support of Yemen over the years. Bin Daghir updated Molki on the latest developments in his country and stressed that peace is the goal we aspire for. Iraqi and Peshmerga forces stormed a village northeast of Mosul as part of a wider operation to recapture the city from Daesh terror group. The village is located 8 kilometers northeast of Mosul and is close to the village of Bashiqa, which was taken by Kurdish fighters. Turkey has troops at the base in Bashiqa, where they have been helping to train Iraqi Kurdish Peshmerga and Sunni fighters. Almost 1 week into the US-led onslaught, many of those running the campaign say the battle to retake the city could be long and hard. The United States Department of Defense released video showing the destruction from an air strike on a militant facility near Mosul last week. Turkish Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu said Turkish artillery fire has killed 17 Daesh militants since the battle to drive them from Mosul began. He also told a joint news conference with his French counterpart that 4 Turkish F-16 fighter jets are on standby to take part. Turkey wants to play a bigger role in the Iraqi-led offensive against Daesh in Mosul, but Iraqi's Prime Minister Haider Abadi had earlier declined an offer from Ankara to take part. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and US Secretary of State John Kerry agreed in a phone call that experts will continue searching for ways to resolve the crisis in the Syrian city of Aleppo. Russia's Foreign Ministry said Lavrov told his US counterpart that the United States must fulfill its obligations in separating moderate opposition groups from terrorists in Syria. Russian Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybakov said earlier his country is not currently considering a new truce in Aleppo after a brief ceasefire ended over the weekend. He said further extensions of the ceasefire would depend on the actions of opposition fighters on the ground. In Idlib province, members of the Syrian Civil Defense, or White Helmets, conducted a painstaking operation to dig out a live boy buried in the rubble of a collapsed building after it was bombarded. Men in white helmets uniforms were using power tools and a mechanical digger to remove layers of debris to uncover the boy with a blooded head and his right arm wrapped in a bandage. Idlib province is largely held by rebel groups fighting President Bashar al-Assad's forces and his allies. Filippo Grandi, head of the UN Refugee Agency, UNHCR, met Syrian refugees living in the Azraq camp in the north of the kingdom. A UNHCR statement said many of the Syrians he met were new arrivals to the camp. Grandi said after the tour that a long pause of fighting is needed to enable humanitarian workers deliver assistance to people in Syria. He also said previous unilateral ceasefires were not enough to allow delivery of humanitarian aid to hundreds of thousands of people in need. The United Nations has criticized the brief ceasefires after long sieges, saying they can be helpful only if combined with humanitarian access for those who do not want to leave.
You followed in the last few days the debate around the pause in fighting in Aleppo. There was a pause, welcome, because that allows us to do work, but during this pause we were not yet able to evacuate at least the wounded from East Aleppo. This is something that continues to be negotiated. We need more of these pauses. We need, in fact, a long pause. We need the pause not to end, and we need this to be transformed into a durable cessation of hostilities, but this has not happened yet.
Queen Mathilde of Belgium visited the Zaatari camp to check on the condition of Syrian refugees. Queen Mathilde and an accompanying delegation met with Zaatari refugee camp director Colonel Nouriz Hakouz and representatives of international organizations operating in the camp that houses 80,000 refugees. The Belgian Queen also toured a number of projects and programs currently being implemented to improve the refugees' standards of living. Evacuation of the refugees dwelling the Calais camp, better known as the Jungle Camp, is currently underway in the French port city. Order was restored at the site after clashes between protesters and the police force last night. The refugees will be transferred to 280 other refugees centers around France after the French Interior Ministry confirmed that the operation to tear down the Calais camp will start today. Departing refugees can choose their desired destination of evacuation in the restoration center. Located at the outskirts of Calais, the refugee camp has for years been a key stopover point for refugees trying to smuggle across the Channel to Britain. French President François Hollande announced last month that the jungle camp will be demolished by the end of the year and that its refugees, estimated to be around 6,000, will be moved to shelters around the country. His Royal Highness Prince Ali bin Hussein is concerned about the pace of reform in world football's governing body. He said new President Gianni Infantino has no time to lose in bringing transparency to the organization. Prince Ali told Reuters in an interview that Infantino should focus on implementing reforms rather than issues such as proposals to expand the World Cup.
When it comes to FIFA at the moment, I think there are other priorities, and that's really in terms of cleaning up the organization. My only concern is that if you do an expansion, it has to be really well thought out. We do have trouble when it comes to World Cup qualifiers, in particular the half slot, where continents have to play a half slot with other continents and so on. So there can be room for an increase. Having said that, one has to be very, very careful. And the way that I see it, to shoot 48 teams, look, at the end of the day, it is a World Cup final. My only concern is it may be more political and about pleasing people rather than what's actually best for the game.
Australian and US robots clashed at the final match of the Robocop challenge in Beijing, a robot football match held as a part of China's 2016 World Robot Conference. A total of 4 Chinese teams and 2 foreign teams competed at the event. Teams competed in a round-robin format tournament which began on last Saturday. The final victors, the University of Texas at Austin Villa and the University of New South Wales's Ron Swift, faced off today. Robot football matches have been held since the mid-90s. And finally, it remained relatively cold across many regions tonight, but pleasant in the Jordan Valley and the Dead Sea with northwesterly light winds. Tomorrow, moderate autumn conditions will prevail across the kingdom, with clouds appearing at various altitudes. Temperature in Amman will hover around the mid-20s. The Gulf Aqaba should expect a relatively hot day tomorrow with northerly winds and choppy seas. Next are the lows and highs for tonight and tomorrow. And to close our top stories once again, His Majesty honors Muslim scholars for their role to defend Islam and rectify misconceptions about the faith. The King checks on the Public Security Department's plans to restructure its various units and traffic system. And Iraqi and Kurdish forces storm villages as they advance in their offensive to recapture Mosul from Daesh. And with that, we come to the end of tonight's news. I'm Lawal Balqar. Thank you for joining us and have a good night.